The Late Morning Program with Namarasa podcast.
You can pick it up whenever you
out at the end.
So welcome everyone. Shanta Vigraha Prabhu. I'm
Krishna.
so excited to talk to you because you're one of my oldest friends from the Pandavasena era in
UK.
in the UK. So I first met you in 2003
Around that 2003
at the
summer.
Manor.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we've been stayed in touch kind of ever since through Facebook and things like that.
Miracle of social media.
The miracle of social media. But I really appreciate all your kind of views on things and your Krishna consciousness. And you seem like you are a very grounded person when it comes to your Krishna consciousness and your ideas of how things should be and just concepts that make someone very balanced, which I feel that you are. And that's why I wanted to have you on, because I think that's what we need more of, balanced devotees.
I think I tried to be.
Yeah.
I think I didn't always used to be.
Right. What were you telling us earlier about when you first joined Krishna consciousness? It's what was the point that you were making there? It was it's very easy, but then something changes.
Yeah, I remember when I first joined, no devotee could do any wrong.
Right.
You saw everybody with, I think the term is rose tinted glasses. Everybody was perfect and you were very happy and you had so much respect for everybody. But then something changes along the way. You sort of maybe have this idea. I don't think we see things in reality.
Yeah.
We tend to see things in terms of the ideal, what people should be. And there's nothing wrong with that. But we also need to be evaluative of understanding where people are and learning how to navigate that. I think sometimes the danger we experience is that we tend to, when we keep people on that sort of pedestal, which there's nothing wrong with doing if it's genuinely how we feel, but especially I've seen it happen when these same people hurt our feelings or sometimes behave in a less than ideal way. It affects us.
Yeah.
So one of the things I've learned over the years is sort of, appreciating people where they are. And I think it sort of came for being honest with where I am and sort of trying to judge myself more harshly than I would judge others.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of like that. And one thing that happened, when I started to do that, is everybody just again started to look much nicer. When I started to appreciate the devotees more.
Yeah.
That not that they did this or they did that, but despite of all the experiences that they may have gone through, they're still able to be Krishna conscious. They're still able to be involved in spiritual activity. They're still able to exist within the community of devotees. And one of the things that happened over the years is sort of feeling grateful that despite what I am, because if we're honest and we really put the light on ourselves, it's a light that we hope most people don't see what it's revealing. And one of the things that I have become or tried to become over the years is very grateful for the fact that I'm allowed to remain in the society of devotees despite my own shortcomings.
Yeah.
I started to appreciate that more.
I think to that point, when you are in a bubble of only devotees, sometimes you lose the shine of other devotees. Like you're only seeing devotees all the time, and you think, oh, these are ordinary people, and they have their faults and things. But like, for example, I'm not saying like I'm more wise or anything, but I very regularly interact with people outside of Krishna consciousness, with work or whatever it is, and that makes me appreciate devotees even more.
Yeah.
Like every devotee, I might have disagreement with them. I might not like them as much as another devotee, or they might have offended me sometime or said something, whatever, like you're saying. But because they're a devotee, that makes me appreciate them so much more, because I know that devotees are so rare.
Like, one of the things like I like to think of it as, like, if you have gold, even tarnished gold is still gold.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like tarnished gold is still gold. Yeah.
If somebody gives you a rock, like, and you hold it after some time, it's weighty, it's heavy, it's useless, right?
Yeah.
But if somebody gives you gold, even if it's tarnished, you won't say, "No, I don't want that gold. It's tarnished." It's gold.
Yeah.
You still want the gold.
Yeah.
So, a tarnished, piece of gold is still better. And a devotee is a devotee. And a devotee is always gold.
Yeah.
So sometimes we think like, gold is gold and the value of it is the same, and appreciates over time. Like, if you look at a lot of these, commodity advisors buy gold, because of currency fluctuations, gold always appreciates over time.
Yeah.
So I think one of the things, if we are very mindful, is we begin to appreciate the devotees more and more over time, because the value of gold appreciates over time.
Yeah.
So it takes work, it takes effort, it takes a certain amount of honesty with ourselves to really appreciate that, because a lot of times we want that appreciation ourselves.
Yeah. What makes devotees keep serving for years, like yourself, years and years, maybe are not appreciated, you're not appreciated, or you're offended, but you continue doing your seva? Like, what's that drive?
I think I was mentioning this story. Well, I could speak for myself. Like,
of course, yeah. I'm talking about you.
Like, I've had many phenomenal experiences, like in the association of devotees. Like, I've had many people who really inspire me. I'll give you one example. Like, I had been practicing Krishna consciousness, to some extent for some years. I'd already started chanting 16 rounds, but I still wasn't sure. Like, before chanting 16 rounds, I was reading Bhagwatam for a few years before that, maybe 4 years before that.
Yeah.
Beginning to study Prabhupada's books. But something really changed me the first time I met Bhakti Tirth Swami. Like, I had spent my first weekend at the temple. Like, in Trinidad, one of the biggest celebrations we have, not as devotees, but as a country, is this thing called Carnival. And they have it in New York, they have it in Miami, but Trinidad is like the mecca of it. It's in Brazil also.
Right.
But you ask most tourists, there's something, some flavor in Trinidad Carnival. No, what it basically is a street party. Like, sometimes we would say things unmentionable in the pages of Bhagwatam. You know what I mean? But I decided I didn't want any part of it that weekend. I was young, like maybe like 16 years old. I thought, I'll spend the weekend at the temple. So I convinced my father to let me stay at the temple. And it was after spending that weekend at the temple, like, I started chanting 16 rounds regularly. On some days I would chant, some days not chant, some days chant more and less, as the case may be. But on that day I started chanting more. And soon after that, Bhakti Tirth Swami visited Trinidad. And, so I cut class. Like, I used to go to school in the south of the island in Trinidad, and they were having a big Harinam in Port of Spain, which is the capital of Trinidad. So one godbrother of mine's, Dvibuja Prabhu, like, he had his father's car, and he used to live in the temple at that time. So him and another devotee were going from south up to the Harinam. So I convinced another school friend, let's cut class and meet up with the devotees and go attend the Harinam. So we did that, like, dressed in school uniform, everything. school uniform. Like I dropped out near to the school, walked straight past the school, got in a taxi, went down to where I was supposed to meet Dwibuja and
Yeah.
another devotee from the South Temple. And we went up to Port of Spain for this Harinam. And the thing that, no, I didn't hear Bhakti Swami give any lecture. He gave some short words in between, but none of it stuck with me. Like I can't remember one word of what he said. But what stuck with me is seeing him in the Harinam, is that he was the happiest person I ever saw in my entire life.
Mm.
And I said to myself, I want that. Like I want what he has. And it was meeting, and we didn't interact like on a personal level. The usual like pleasantries. What is your name? How long? Nothing like that. I just saw him. He seemed, and the happiness wasn't coming from what he was doing. Because if you're in kirtan, the kirtan itself, if it's nice, if it's exciting, that has an effect. But it wasn't coming from that. Like even without that, he would still be that person, like the happiest person I ever met. And when I went home, like I very excitedly, I told my father, today I decided what I want to do with my life. And I come from, like my father was a teacher and then a school vice principal, then a principal. So as anybody from that ilk, they would probably think, well, doctor, lawyer, engineer, something like that. So he said, what's that? So I said, I want to be a Hare Krishna. What? That was the worst thing I could have told him.
Wow.
Like I wanted to be a Hare Krishna. But he accepted it over time. And, I did different things at school. Myself and one other god brother, Rupa Goswami Prabhu, who I think you know also.
Of course, yeah.
Like we started, like at the school we went to, we started a youth club, ISKCON Youth Club of Presentation College. That was the name of the school I went to, with the help of the then temple president of our South Temple, Krishna Kripa Prabhu, who left us just about a year ago. He was very, very instrumental in our activities. Like he would help us publish a newsletter. He would help, the temple would cook prasad, and through the ISKCON Youth Club, we would distribute meals on the high street just near the school. We would have RI classes where the devotees would come in and teach. We even developed like a very good relationship with the principal of the school. That one time I remember a preacher came in. I went to a Catholic school.
Yeah.
And this evangelical speaker came in, and he was speaking about different things. But one of the things that stood out is what he was saying. He spoke something negatively about Prabhupada. How that came into his speech, I have no idea. But he was, they tend to be very populist and very like charismatic in their presentations, and they wanted him to come back. And we had such a reputation in the school that we went and spoke to the school principal, and we felt it was, not proper what this person was saying without proper facts, and especially misrepresenting an organization like that or a person like that. It is not, like proper if somebody is representing the Bible.
Yeah.
That's not a good light. They never invited him back. So they had we would get, this was so funny, like back in the day, because we had become an official group in the school, we would say, listen, we have this festival at the temple today. The temple was about 20 minutes drive away from school. Rupa Goswami was the only one in our group who had a license. And his father gave him a car.
Oh, nice.
So we would go to the vice principal and tell him, we're having this festival. It's a school outing. We're going down to the temple just to visit. We're back in time for the end of school for parents to pick their kids up and whatnot. Could we get official permission to leave the school?
Yeah.
And they would just give us permission. And a group of about 10, 12, like sometimes 6 of us, 7 of us would pile into one car. and we would go down to the temple for the lunchtime program. Like somebody's appearance day, some acharya's appearance day, some appearance day of the Lord. And the school would give official permission for us to go. Yeah. And we had some good times. One of the highlights of that was one year Ravindra Swarup visited Trinidad, and we took that opportunity to invite him to the college to give a talk on dharma and religion and whatnot.
Yeah.
And we advertised him as PhD in religion and philosophy from whatever university. I think it was Temple University. And we went and advertised to all the classes that would have RI classes in that time slot. About 200 people came, including their teachers. And it was people sitting. We had a balcony in the auditorium.
Yeah.
The whole balcony was packed. People were standing up on the sides, sitting on the floor.
That's awesome.
So
Wow.
so we had so like those were some of my formative years as a devotee, and one of the things that really influenced that was, I think, that meeting with Bhakti Tirth Swami, that I really wanted what he had. And there's many other experiences of people who positively influence like my life, both in terms of aspiring towards something positive, and also in terms of how to deal with negatives, as we often encounter in our spiritual practice and our spiritual journey.
Yeah. What keeps you kind of enthused to continue bhakti practices and things?
Well, if I'm honest, on some days I'm more enthused than others.
Of course, yeah. Of course, yeah.
But I think like I love Bhagwatam.
Yeah.
Like I find like Bhagwatam, like I was, making that example earlier about, when the light is shone on ourselves. Like there's this verse, like the sages ask Sutta Goswami, now that Krishna has left, where will we go for direction? They ask that in the first chapter of the Bhagwatam.
Yeah.
And in the third chapter of the first canto, Sutta Goswami answers, Krishna Swadamo Pagate Dharma Jnana Divis. Like those who have lost their direction will get light from this Purana. Bhagavatam is as brilliant as the sun. It has arisen just after Krishna. Puran Arkaha. Like I was giving this example in a recent talk I was giving at one devotee's home, that when we say we'll get light, Bhagavatam shines light on us. When the light is shone on us, then is one thing that we realize, like one of the effects that it has is that we realize where we are. What are the difficulties that we are having? We get to see who we are, where we are. Bhagwatam does that. Like just recently, I know this podcast is pre-recorded, but like one reflection I was having on Govardhan Puja, one of the verses of Bhagwatam that is considered perhaps the most important verse from some angles of vision is 1.3.28, which is considered the seed verse of Bhagavatam, or the Paribhasha Sutra. Iti chamsa kalapumsa Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam.
Right.
Basically, what's the second section of the verses? Indrari Vyakulam Lokam Hridayanti Yuge. Indra Ari. That from time to time enemies of Indra appear, and Krishna appears to kill those enemies, Mridayanti Yuge, to destroy those enemies. So if we look at Bhagavatam, a lot of the enemies that Krishna has a hand in destroying is not any enemy outside of Indra. It's enemies that arise from Indra's own heart.
Oh.
So if we look at Govardhan Puja, what was the enemy? Indra's pride was hurt. And because he felt, his pride was hurt, he flew off the handle and took an extreme measure that teach these people a lesson. They're following that boy, I'll kill them. I'll destroy everything they have and everything they love and everyone they love, including that boy. But Krishna crushed Indra's pride. And then there's this beautiful story where Indra, comes with Surabhi and the Abhishek Krishna, and he asks for forgiveness. And then Govinda Kund was formed, like around that Govardhan Parikram. You look at in the 6th canto of Bhagavatam, there's the pastime of Vritrasura. Indra again offends his spiritual master. And there's this whole intrigue of all the, really depths that Indra would sink to get his way. One of them is that he takes the bones of Dadichi Muni
Mm.
You know, like how comfortable do you have to be with the position that you are in, that you ask somebody to give up their life so you could regain your position? Somebody you don't know. I mean, what kind of gall does it take?
Yeah.
It takes a special type of person to do that, and that was
Yeah.
Indra. You know, but Krishna manifests as Vritrasura. Sorry, the pastime manifests where Vritrasura comes,
Yeah.
and he's a devotee. This is one of my favorite pastimes in entire Bhagwatam. And you know, Indra is victorious because he kills Vritrasura, but the loser is Indra.
Mm.
You know, and like if we really look at the lessons that Bhagwatam teaches, is, you know, that's us. You know, we use people to get to fulfill our means, what we want. You know, like this meme sometimes goes around. You see it on social media. Like really, we're supposed to use things and love people. You know, but not more and more. We love things and we use people.
Yeah.
So you look at how Indra treats, you know, Dadichi. Use them. He doesn't have any appreciation for his sacrifice or anything like that. But he uses him to get his own means.
Yeah.
You know, and that's us. We do that. You know, we sometimes, for very small offenses in relationships, in our friendships, we fly off the deep end and want to take extreme measures. You know, for what? You know, if we just take a step back, try to understand the situation from that person's perspective, maybe we wouldn't act as such. Maybe our relationships would improve.
Right.
You know, like in any pastime you could look at in Bhagwatam, we could find some manifestation of ourselves at some point in time. So we get the benefit of learning from others' mistakes. And if we really appreciate the light that Bhagwatam shines on us, then we're able to discover our own shortcomings and work on them. And as I like to say sometimes, become a better offering to Krishna.
Mm. So you're saying using those leelas in the Bhagavatam, applying them to your life,
Yeah.
has been something.
That encourages me, because the thing is, like there's only so much influence I could have on others. Like, you know, sometimes like we want to preach Krishna consciousness to others, to share bhakti with others, but it's difficult. You know, and but the easiest person to share it with is ourselves.
Mm.
You know, and if I want to become, you know, useful to, let's say, Srila Prabhupada, useful to Krishna, or useful to my family, useful to my friends, then I have to be better. So how do I be better? You know, so I find that the best project to work on is me. You know, like, let me try to resolve the shortcomings that I have in my own practice. And that gives me encouragement, because it's plenty work.
I love I was trying to find it again, but there was something that Madhavananda Prabhu shared, I believe, where it was a quote from, I think maybe
Socrates.
Bhaktisiddhanta.
Was it Socrates?
It was someone where it said, I'm not sure if it was Socrates, but it was along the lines of, if you're not ideal in your activities and basically your activities, then stay inside a room and like preach to yourself until you are.
You know, I think,
Do you remember that quote?
if I'm not mistaken, I think that was written in Gopi Pranadhana's room.
That's right. That's what it was. That's what
Yes.
it was. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he had this little, until you're inside and outside the same, don't preach. You know,
Yeah.
something to that effect.
What do you think about that?
I think it's true. Like, I think many times we use trying to change others as a substitute for changing ourselves.
Yes.
And long term, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. We just become frustrated, and people become frustrated with us over time.
Mm.
Like, and we see it happen all the time. Like, there's so many people who take activist stances now, more and more. And that's fine. Like, nothing is wrong with that. Like, it's natural to become concerned about others and others' well-being. But at some point in time, real change could happen when we take that stance to be better, to do better, control the things that we can control and be honest about it.
Yeah.
Not just, saying that. But it's easy to give comments that others need to do such and such and such. Anybody could do that. It doesn't take any responsibility to do that. It doesn't take any kind of exceptional amounts of courage to do that. But you look at the history of all the great men of this world. It was men who stood up and presented themselves, to want to be architects of change. You look at, Martin Luther King. You look at, our own Srila Prabhupada, for that matter, Mahatma Gandhi. Like, all these great people were people who stood up, not just like making comments, but actually stood up and tried to be part of the change that, as is famously said, I think, by Mahatma Gandhi, become the change that you wish to see in the world.
Yeah.
And that takes work. It takes work. And the only person that we could guarantee to have some effect on is ourselves. And if we want to become better, if we want to do better, charity begins at home.
Yeah.
We have to work on ourselves.
That's something I like to say is when I think of Srila Prabhupada coming to America and writing these books, and like he's wrote them for me.
Yeah.
Not for just me to go and distribute and try to give it to everyone and anyone, but like for me to actually inculcate those teachings in my life and be deep about how I'm going to, put them in my life. Like, he came to save me, came to help me first over everything. And I think that helps me also. I think I heard Amarendra Prabhu say something recently where he said Srila Prabhupada spent like sleepless nights translating these books, like 2 hours or 3 hours a night.
Yeah.
Can't you spend 10 minutes a day just reading reading that?
Yeah.
Like making that balance. Like he spent all this like 2 hours in the middle of the night. Can't you spend 10 minutes of your day?
Yeah.
And that hit me so hard when he said that. I was like, that's so true. When you put it like that, that's so true. That when everyone was sleeping, he was translating these books for us.
That's why I appreciate like the work that devotees like Vaisheshika do, like to really highlight the importance of reading Srila Prabhupada's books.
Yeah.
Like, one thing that really like fired me up like some years ago, like he was sharing these videos that they were in Govardhan, they would go for Kartik each year, and they would read a canto of Bhagwatam.
Right.
Like all day.
Yeah.
And not just one person, but a group of them. And Navina Narada, he was saying that they do that all the time. It's something that they do.
Yeah.
To read Prabhupada's books. And like I'll tell you, it's easier said than done. And it takes work, it takes effort. And there's one group of people like I find very instructive. And that's Muslims. Like quite interestingly. I remember many years ago, it's not an uncommon sight, that we were driving to one place in Trinidad, and there was a bus, a small minibus, like stopped on the side of the highway, and it was Muslims. And of course, it was a bit impractical to stop on the side of the highway, but it was the time for evening prayer, and they stopped driving. They got out on the side of the road, and they offered their evening prayers. And they were all in their garb, so they must have been going to an event or maybe from an event or something, but they stopped. And I'll tell you, like, even sometimes I don't do that with my Gayatris.
Right.
Like sometimes it's the easiest thing to shift aside. I'm a little busy at this lunchtime, so I'll chant 2 this evening.
Yeah.
I mean, long term, that can't be good.
Yeah.
For a spiritual practice. Like these things, when neglected over time, it has an effect. It has an effect on us as an individual. And if enough individuals allow that negative thing to take effect, it has effect on us as a society, as an organization. If we look in terms of ISKCON.
So you're saying like the laxness of sadhana in individuals can trickle down into the whole society and affect the whole society.
Because the society is made up of individuals.
Right.
So if individually we take responsibility for ourselves, then that has a positive effect on the society as a whole. And if one person improves, and this is sometimes we tend to not value this enough, I think. If one person improved, then the society has improved.
Yeah.
One person improves the society by definition.
Yeah.
It might not be like on the scale that we would want to see, where we actually see this, like this like big changes taking place. But if we become better, then we could, act in our circle of influence. We could be more like, what do we say, right? If you want to improve your chanting, associate with somebody who has nice japa, who does nice japa. If you want to become enthusiastic in reading, well, associate with somebody who's enthusiastic in reading. If you want to, be better in anything, as a cook, go and associate with a cook.
Yeah.
You learn from that person. So if you want to be better at anything, just find somebody who you at least have some respect that's better than you in it, and go and, serve that person. Go and associate with that person. Go and hear from that person. Spend time with that person. Reciprocate with that person, and it will have an effect. So in the same way, like if we become better, then we can help others become better. So it comes back to the same point. Like if we improve, then we can help others to improve. I think it's a natural byproduct. When we experience happiness, we want to share. Happiness is something that's infectious. It's something that naturally wants to boil over. It's something that we naturally want to give with others. If we hear a good joke, first thing hey, listen, I heard this joke. Let me share it with you. And if you ate at a good restaurant, have you ever eaten at this place? You want to share it with somebody. Why? Because you had a positive experience of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So in the same thing, when we begin to do things that nourishes us deeply in our own spiritual practice, naturally we'll share that with others. I think also what happens is the quality of our conversations would also improve. In I think it's 1715, where Krishna speaks about the austerity of speech. One of the things he says is by careful study of the Vedic literature. Swadhyaya Bhihasanam, by careful study of the Vedic literature. And as the saying goes, what goes in is what will come out.
Yeah.
And if you notice that, like some devotees, you just have to just squeeze them a little, and so much comes out.
Yeah.
And somebody and it's not like I'm not saying this to say one is better than the other or anything like that, but it's just an observation.
Yeah.
And sometimes somebody oh yeah, that's nice. They can't, it doesn't have that effect on them.
Right.
Somebody, as soon as you just give them a little thing, they just lap it up and they begin to give of themselves. Because something is in there.
I wonder what it would take to inspire the society of devotees to, it's hard even just being a grahasta and with children and things to try to sit down and read and spend, use that little bit of free time that you have for spiritual activities when you want to just try to keep yourself sane sometimes, and just kick back and relax or do something else,
My experience also being a grihasta is sometimes we have to find something that inspires us. So what has worked for me over the years is I like to listen to lectures. I love learning.
Yeah.
I love learning from other devotees. I like hearing about other devotees' experiences. So there's to add on to that, there's this series of talks. I think it was a seminar with Pandavasena that Sachinandan Maharaj gave several years ago called The Tree of Life.
Oh, right.
You remember that, right?
I've heard of that, yeah.
Yeah. So he analyzes the tree as having three different components, like roots, the trunk, and then the crown. And the roots directly deals with our connection to Krishna. The trunk deals with, maintaining a balanced lifestyle, mentally, physically as well. And the crown is if we're nourished spiritually and we're nourished, we're balanced physically and mentally, then naturally the crown becomes very robust, becomes very prominent. And the crown is what we can do to give back to others. Now, before we can give back to others, it comes back to the same point. Like, how do we nourish our roots? So for especially us, like trying to practice Gaudiya Vaishnavism, Bhakti according to the Gaudiya line, there are certain activities which are considered directly linked to Krishna. like the 9 processes of Bhakti, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu. So one thing I find is, of those 9 processes, which one resonates deeply with you? Which one resonates most with you? So find that and let that be your connection. If it's worshipping the deity, then find some time every day, every week, that way you could just unplug for a little bit and focus on that, whether it be for an hour or for 2 hours, but really put your effort into it.
Yeah.
If it's japa, and it's hectic, make time, focus on it. Find some other devotees, chant with them, put on a recording of Srila Prabhupada, chant along with Srila Prabhupada. Recently I found some videos on YouTube. If you want to chant around 7 minutes, listen to with Prabhupada, watch this video. If you want to chant around in 8 minutes, watch this video.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So the mantras are timed.
Right.
And really put some effort into it.
Right.
Like, so there are ways we could do it. Sometimes, even if it's something we're not, because we originally started off talking about reading, sometimes, and you made the point that just to get a break from the insanity, but sometimes taking a step back is what keeps us sane in an insane world.
Yeah.
Like sort of becoming more grounded in reality. Because coming back to Bhagwatam, what is knowledge, reality distinguished from illusion for the benefit of all. So when we begin to see things from a more elevated perspective, then what naturally happens, we benefit and people benefit. Reality distinguished from illusion for the benefit of all. Recently Mahatma gave this he does nice short Facebook videos, and there was this nice one, like sometimes, like how we speak to ourselves is very important. And so he was making this point. What are the qualities of the soul that are mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, that Prabhupada mentions, that, the soul is amazing, the soul is beautiful, the soul is, and you can add so many, indestructible. So what we actually say when the soul is amazing, when we say the soul is amazing, I am amazing. When we say the soul is blissful, I am blissful. Because we are not the body. We are the soul. That is who we are. So if we begin to change our narrative, like to thinking more on the basis of the soul, and how do we sustain that when there are certain activities that sustain that? One of them is being in regular connection with spiritual sound. We chant our mantras, Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna. We chant the Gayatri mantras. By being in contact with sacred books, we read. Sometimes it might just, and there's verses that says that if somebody even reads one chapter, one verse, even a piece of a verse, there's so much benefit.
Yeah.
So if we just like little things, like, sometimes we get so caught up in thinking about all the things that we can't do because of all our responsibilities, because of traffic, because of children. Because
That's such a good point.
Like we tend to forget that what can I do now? This is my situation. This is what is happening. So what could I do? So I could read 5 minutes. I could spend 1 hour doing something that really encourages me in my spiritual practice.
Yeah.
If we look at, the 9 forms of devotional service, or we look at the 5 most potent forms of devotional service that Rupa Goswami outlines, hearing Bhagwatam in the association of devotees, chanting the holy name, visiting a holy place, whatever. Find something that really resonates with you as an individual and make some time for it. Because if it resonates with you, then you'll become more easily encouraged by that activity than somebody just telling you, well, you need to do this or you need to do that.
One thing is that sometimes I think, or someone can think so much about the goal that you can become discouraged, that the goal is so far away,
Right.
that it's like, what's the point? An all or nothing mentality.
Yeah.
That, whatever, I'm just going to live another few lives or 100 lives, whatever. It's like, so is it important to look at the goal, or is it important, like the sadhana and the sadhya, we say is like the same. But as humans, we think a lot about like the results a lot.
Yeah. I mean, you see, like in one sense, like understanding who we are, like there's this 3 different levels of understanding. And there's sambandha, knowledge of relationship. There's prayojana, or the knowledge of the goal or the ultimate attainment. But in the middle there's abhideya. So what do we do in order to achieve that?
Yeah.
Now, in one sense, like what you do is dependent on where you are. Like on your level of relationship, on your level of understanding of that relationship. So in one sense, like we have to have knowledge of the goal, but what we do should be relevant to where we are in terms of abhideya.
Yeah.
So I think like sometimes if we get too much caught up in thinking of the goal, but not understanding what we can do from our position.
Oh yeah.
That tends to be frustrating. That tends to bring frustration. Like, it's like certain types of meditation, we may like it, we may be attracted by it, but honestly, we can't do it. So what could I do now? To move. So it's sort of like understanding where we are. And like it has to do a lot with being honest with ourselves. I think like a lot of it comes down to like, where am I? What are the difficulties that I am experiencing right now in my own spiritual life, in my own spiritual practice? Where am I now? Asking these questions of ourselves. Where do I want to be? So what I found that worked for me is, okay, so like a few Kartiks ago, like I developed this habit. This was many Kartiks ago. I was working still. Like I no longer work. I'm sort of like a stay-at-home dad now. And like I would have to sit just to get to work, a couple hours traffic, and then traffic in the evening, then dealing with, my father who was sick at the time, and young kids, and so it was hectic.
Yeah.
And I developed this habit of chanting japa on these electronic counters.
Mm-hmm.
I developed that habit, and I didn't like it. Like I didn't like it. Like I felt it was becoming more mechanical than sort of connected. Like just seeing the holy name or my minimum japa at the end of something, a number just to achieve rather than, a relationship I'm entering into. So I wanted to stop for myself, not for anybody else. I don't have any opinion. Whatever works for an individual works for an individual.
Right.
It just wasn't for me.
Right.
And so I felt I wanted to stop. So Kartik was coming up. So I just said, okay, let me try something. And so I said to myself, like, for this Kartik, I won't use the counter, like the electronic counter. I'll only use my beads. And I've never used my counter since. Like, I've never used it since. Now, that isn't to say that I may be in some situation in the future when it might be useful. It might be.
Yeah.
But, like, I'm more comfortable using the beads. Like, I make priority for it. Like I try to make that, because it's connection. Tulsi is also a devotee. So when you're in connection with the beads, we were discussing that, like the importance of Tulsi and how she helps, in this miraculous way. Like you can't even explain it.
Yeah.
Like how Tulsi Devi nourishes our own spiritual growth. It's like one of these like benedictions that Krishna has given to the world.
A lot of devotees don't take advantage of that, actually.
Let me tell you, like if it's one lesson, like I learned from Tulsi, like you won't find this in America, but I think I sent you some pictures of this in the past, where this huge Tulsi tree grows out of a crack in the ground.
Yeah, I think
Right?
I've seen that, yeah.
So I figured, like if Tulsi Devi could thrive in such an environment, I have no excuse.
That's a good point.
Like if she could do it,
Right.
then despite, like, Tupac had this poems, the rose that grew in the concrete.
Right.
So if Tulsi could grow out of the concrete, then what excuse do I have
Right.
for not doing something better?
Along the same lines of that point you made of you need to know where you are, is that when you see a map, like when you go to the mall, there's like where you want to go, you are here.
Yeah.
You need to know where you
Yeah.
are to get to where you need to go. I think that's so important. Like, because we might think we're like here, but we're actually here.
Yeah.
And for us to get here, you need to like accept and realize and know that you're here, and then make the certain adjustment where you can level up. But
I think one thing that helps with that is the next question might be, so how does one realize where he's actually at? I think
good question.
I think it's important, like the importance of friendships in Krishna
Yes.
consciousness. Like
Yes.
somebody who could, give us a true reflection of where we actually are.
Yeah.
Like, that person who can tell us, listen, who can tell us the unpleasant truths about ourselves. Yeah, and we are willing to listen to that person. Like I think a lot of times we live in echo chambers, and when we do hear somebody giving us honest feedback, well-intentioned feedback, like we can't recognize it.
Yeah.
So and these types of friendships, I think, is very important for us to cultivate.
Yeah.
And you won't have many friends like that.
You're lucky if you have one.
Yeah. Like it takes effort, like to have a friend like that. I think we have to be extremely blessed to have friends like that. But if, like you said, if we could have one friend like that, who could honestly reflect, where we are, to tell us, you're being an idiot. Like you shouldn't have said that. You shouldn't have done that. You need to work on this. You need to work on that. It's painful for us to hear.
Yeah.
It's painful because, I think I'm great as I am. As it's if you don't love me as I am, but if we want to give love, then we have to be willing to give what the person wants. And we want, Krishna consciousness is about, giving to Krishna, making Krishna happy.
It requires vulnerability with others, which is so difficult sometimes, because especially in a society where it's a lot based on externals and merits and things like that.
Yeah.
It's hard to be vulnerable, because you'll be judged by it, and maybe activities that you were allowed to do, you may not be allowed to do them anymore, or like judgment is such a hard thing to deal with.
And one thing, like as speaking about like externals, one of the things I try to do, like in places where I have the opportunity to visit, is like, sometimes there's a lot of devotees who you would never hear about, who would never give a class, who would never lead a kirtan.
Yeah.
Like, sort of like unsung heroes. But when you really get to know these people, but these people are utterly amazing.
Yeah.
But nobody would ever know about them, because there would never be a famous kirtan singer. There would never be a famous speaker, anything, famous pujari. There's one devotee like that, and many devotees, and like I'd even
I feel like every
venture to
temple has
say
one or
every
two.
temple has at least one.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think that the reason why a community is able to sustain in that area is because of them.
Yes, for sure. 100%.
Because Krishna maintains things for his devotees. And like there's this devotee in Guyana, like you'd never hear him complain. Like he is sick, like health problems, and like he does pujari service, and like in this particular temple things were really difficult. Like they had some really like negative experiences over the last few years. Management tends to be unstable, and one of the few stable things in that temple is him. He doesn't complain about the GBC. He doesn't complain to the GBC. He doesn't complain about. He might make some comments.
Yeah.
But he would wake up every morning about 1 o'clock, chant japa until time for him to go and do his service.
Wow.
And he chants at least 64 rounds or more each day. Most of it in the morning. He would read Bhagwatam. Like his wife came to the US to live, and sometimes he would be speaking to his wife on the phone. And he would say, like we've been talking for some time. I have to read Bhagwatam. And like
That's awesome.
so somebody might say, but that's his wife.
Yeah.
But I know him and I know his wife personally. And they have one of the most loving relationships you can ever imagine.
Wow.
And they're older people, older couple.
Mm.
Their daughter got married recently. And it's such a beautiful thing. And the wife, she doesn't say, but you don't talk to me, I'm living here, and yes, it's Bhagwatam. Like they have just such that loving, and he's such an amazing devotee.
Yeah.
Such an amazing devotee. There's this other devotee in Trinidad. Like one time, when my grandfather was sick, I was working in Port of Spain. I was also taking care of him, and it was Ekadasi. And there's this fruit in Trinidad called a balata. Like if any of the Caribbean listeners they know what a balata is. Mm-hmm. It's like a mini chiku, but it has a very unique flavor, sapodilla. It's like so it's small and grows on a very high tree, and so I saw this selling on the side of the road. You only get good balata a certain time of the year, not even every year.
Yeah.
It comes in seasons, and sometimes a season doesn't come for a couple of years. And more you're seeing less of these exotic fruits, right, even in an island like Trinidad.
Wow.
So I saw this the selling. So I called them up and said, listen, I bought you a bag of balata because it's one of his favorite fruits. I bought you a bag of balata, but the only thing, I won't be able to drive into your house to bring it to you because I have to go back to my grandfather's. So you have to meet me on the side of the highway. Which he just drives out, meets me, and goes back in. So he said, no problem. So I bought him the bag of balata. He was there waiting for me as I got to the place. So he comes out of the vehicle. He gives me, it was Ekadasi, he gives me a container of soup. And also he gives me some boga. He said, I know, like when you go home as Ekadasi, you'll be hungry. And it might take you some time to cook. So while you're cooking, drink the soup. So you'll have something.
Yeah.
And he is somebody who would give of himself to people.
Yeah.
And has been doing it for years. And he doesn't work anywhere. He's not somebody who is wealthy. Like for him to give me some boga was a sacrifice. And I was a working man.
Yeah.
But he would give of himself to people.
Mm.
Yeah, and there's if we careful, in every yatra there's devotees like that we could be encouraged by.
Totally.
It doesn't have to just be, somebody who comes in or something like that. But like learning to appreciate the devotees in our own community. It helps us to become, I think, more grounded, to develop a deeper sense of appreciation for the situation that Krishna has put us in.
Yeah.
It helps us to be more, like when we give sincere appreciation to others, the natural byproduct, we feel good. It's instant. Like to really give sincere appreciation for others. I mean, like when you offer sincere appreciation to Tulsi at home, it feels good, right?
Yeah.
She feels good. And when she offers sincere appreciation to you, you also feel good. It helps, relationships to grow and to become stronger. And when people feel, I think like a wider point that we can make from this is when people feel genuine appreciation, then they're more likely to receive correction also, because they know it's not coming from a bad place.
Yeah.
It's not coming from a place of you just trying to lord them over. It's not coming from a place of just seeing you as somebody who could get something done for them. And that's the extent of your utility.
Yeah. What do you think in 2023 that the society should maybe work on or can improve? It's kind of a broad question.
It's also a hard question to answer, because I think like in different yatras, the answer might be different. In different temples, it might be different.
Yeah, that's true.
Like in as a group, the answer might be different to some as an individual.
Or what do you think the emphasis should be? I mean, you said Bhagwatam's really important. Hearing is like what our Shastras say, but
Yeah.
like a lot of emphasis is given on, let's say, child protection or like discussions devotees are having. What should the emphasis be? Of course, Krishna Leela. I mean, the answers are there, but it's not exactly what everyone's doing.
I think like one discussion could possibly be like if devotees get together and give an assessment of their own place, like to really give an assessment of their own place. And if like we were to say, well, okay, so what are the things we can work on, like in order of priority or in order of need? Or
when you mean your own place, like themselves, or where they live?
where they live.
Oh, okay.
Like where they live and the temples that they serve.
Yeah.
Like that. Because it's a hard question to answer, like beyond a certain scope.
Yeah.
Because you could only give general answers to like when you speak about something in a wide area. But if you want to become more specific, then it has to become more individualized.
I think
the temple.
Yeah, I think devotees. I think we definitely need to regularly have assessments of our own our own places and locations, because we can get stagnant and kind of just going through the motions in spiritual life, even as a community.
Yeah. So just seeing, and that helps us to kind of get an idea of what a need might be.
Right.
If we understand the need, then we could put attention to that need and then make a plan.
Yeah.
Like, I think one of the things like I've seen shortfall in terms of like my own self, like being in management and others as well, is that we have an idea of what we want to see happen. But oftentimes we don't take time to chart out a course of how to achieve that, like in a realistic sense. So like for example, if we want to see people discussing Bhagwatam more, what are the ways we could approach that? Well, we
like
could
what's the first, like, it starts with the first step.
It's
like instead of being very idealistic.
Yeah. Well, you should read Bhagwatam more, Prabhu. Full stop.
Right.
Okay, so what could we do as a group or and it may be we could do it on the scale of a temple. It may be individuals in the community. Like if I recognize a need, okay, so what could I do? Maybe I could start a group. I'll give you an example of something that was done in Trinidad. This devotee Rajarshi Prabhu during COVID, everything was cut off, basically. Like the temple was shut down and whatever. So we started a group on a chat app called FCC. I think free conference call, FCC. So we started a group. Nobody was working. Everybody was home, right? So we would have meetings at 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. And we started with 6 canto of Bhagwatam. Just randomly, 6 canto of Bhagwatam. And we thought we'd just explore the Ajamal pastime. So I had studied the Ajamal pastime to some details. I would give like insights into it,
Yeah.
like that, and myself and Raja Shiprabhu especially would comment like on different sections of it. So then, like after going through that pastime, different festivals would come up, and we would, like go into that festival. Like Nrsimha Chaturdashi came up, so we started reading seven canto and things like that. Till the group evolved and such that over the last 2.5 years, 3 years, since COVID, read Bhagavad Gita several times, Nectar of Devotion, Ishopanishad. We have a consistent group of devotees who log on regularly, morning and evening.
Nice.
When it's up to we read Lilamrita. Well, they would have read because of responsibilities with my kids. Like I haven't joined for a long time. But they're up to 10th canto in Bhagwatam.
Wow.
So, and that's reading every day. Read Chaitanya Charitamrita
Oh my gosh.
just on this app. So like the point is that if a few people just, take some real steps and maintain consistency, then an amazing thing can happen.
Mm.
And there's a lot of people, like in the group, we had some people, one guy would tune in from Canada, one devotee from the US, in Florida, a few local devotees, couple devotees from Guyana.
Yeah.
The group, and it's so consistent that, people have grown to set their day by that meeting.
Wow.
And that's not the only one. There's other. So sometimes, we tend to, have this like idea that it has to be this way.
Yeah.
But it could be small. Small things done consistently over time yield big results. It's just like something small consistently.
Yeah.
So if we were to have discussions as to what to do, pick one thing, as an individual, as a group, and see what we could do and just be consistent.
Yeah.
Just be consistent.
I remember as a younger man, I felt like very idealistic.
Yeah.
It has to be a certain way for it to be correct and things like. And just as getting older, being a parent, it's like the best you can just try your best.
Yeah.
Like that's literally all we can do.
I think like from being idealistic, we tend to become more realistic.
Exactly. That's so good. Yeah. Idealistic to realistic. And then it kind of gives a freedom of like there's like a weight on you when you're just real about things.
Yeah.
It's like Krishna, just like the example is given of darshan. Darshan is not just you going to see the deity, but that the deity will see you in all your openness and like, Krishna, this is who I am. I'm presenting myself to you as I am.
Yeah.
And that's all I can be. You can only be yourself.
Yeah. But one thing I would add to that, like, one way to see darshan is you look at Krishna is looking back.
Yeah.
Like the question I like to ask, so what does Krishna see when he looks at me?
Yes.
And to flip it, if I were looking at me, would I like what I see?
Yes. Totally.
And that sort of gives us an impetus to improve.
Yeah, not just to be stagnant and be like, oh, this is who I am, and just deal with it.
Deal with it.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I like that point, what you made. Yeah.
Like, because we want to become, because ultimately the offering is us.
Yes, we're the offering.
It boils down to that.
You said that, right?
Yeah. Ultimately the offering is us. Like, if I want to, like, I'm giving myself to Atma Nivedanam, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm giving myself to Krishna.
Right.
So I want to give the best version of myself over time. I want to give the best version of myself at that time, but I also want to give the best version of myself over time.
Yeah.
Like I had this experience like some years ago, and it was like when I just came into temple management, there was a lady who wanted to give us a piece of property, but she was sending money for us to fix it up, and she was going to we would get renters for it, and we would just keep the money. Like, so the temple would get an extra source of income. And realistically, it was very difficult for us to manage that. Like, to get people to do it and whatever. But, with all good intention, the devotee agreed he would do it. I was the communication go-between, and until he would say yes, he would do it, and he would, whatever. It wasn't working out, the long and short of it. Until finally it got to a point where the lady was asking, this isn't being done, that isn't being done. And I just had, on the instruction of the person who was in charge at that time, write a very negative response, which I didn't know any better. Like I was young, yes, like I was 20 years ago at least, or more.
Yeah.
And more than 20 years ago. And like, this lady was very nice to me, actually. She actually sent me some CDs with Radhanath Swami and things like that. That was when, I don't know if people still know what a CD is. It was
Compact disc.
It was an MP3 CD.
Yeah.
And those lectures were life-changing.
Yeah.
It really helped me a lot. And years later, like, one of the big festivals we have at our temple, at our headquarters in Radha Gopinath Mandir in Trinidad, is our annual Nrsimha Yagya. Like at least 100 people come in. We have a huge pit we make where into Hawan Kund, and devotees simultaneously offering. We chant 108 names of Lord Nrsimha Dev, Nrsimha Kavacha, and the Ugram Veeram mantra.
Right.
And like that, and many devotees. That's loud, resounding when everybody chanting Swaha. So, at the end of every yagya, there's the Prayashchitta Puja.
Yeah.
So I was making some comments on that, acknowledging our frailty is part of worship. That despite we would have made our best effort, inevitably we would have made some error. And acknowledging our own frailty is part of our offering to Krishna.
Yes.
Like that. I comment along those lines. Just before we do that, despite whatever failings I may have in myself, my dear Lord, please accept this attempt to serve you.
Yeah.
And after the ceremony was over, this lady just walks up to me and she says, "Do you know who I am?" This was maybe more than 10 years down the road. She said, "Do you know who I am?" I said, "No." I said, I honestly can't say that you look familiar. And she said, "It's true, because you never met me. But you know me, and I know you." I said, "What?" I started to scratch my head, what is this lady talking about? And she said, "But one thing I'll tell you is you are not the same person I knew from many years ago."
Whoa.
So I said, who are you? And then there was that lady who was giving that property, who I told off in the email.
Oh my gosh.
It was that lady. She had visited Trinidad. She attended the festival that day. And she said that you are not the same person who spoke to me all those years ago. I could see you've changed. And then I asked her positively.
Yeah.
And she said yes.
Oh, wow.
And I said, "Thank you very much." I said, I would have been very disappointed if I was the same person as 10, 15 years ago, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So I really appreciated that at least, hearing it from somebody who you had a negative experience with.
Yeah.
That at least giving you that positive feedback.
Right.
At least, it mightn't be big strides, but at least I had made some strides in the right direction. And I actually told her, I said, some of those lectures you gave me really helped me. Those CDs that you sent me, those MP3 CDs, it really helped me. And she said, I'm glad I could be of service.
Well, Shanta Vigraha Prabhu, I think we've come to the end, but it was really nice talking to you. And
It was I have to say, I've looked at these practically every single episode. From the first one with Jai Jagannath,
yeah, right.
and up until the more recent ones that you did.
Yeah.
and and I appreciate this podcast very much.
Thank you.
Because and this is not just saying this like to blow steam,
Right.
right? But like many of the conversations that you had, I began to appreciate the many kinds of devotees that we have in our community.
Totally.
And that is one of the things I appreciated. Like,
Yeah.
we are not like a monochromatic society.
Yeah.
Like, we are a multi-chromatic society.
Yeah. And that's what makes it beautiful, right?
Yes. That when this tapestry is woven together, it really becomes beautiful to look
Totally.
at.
Yeah.
And so many diverse group of guests, from sannyasis, going to Vrindavan to live their last days, as Kadamba Kanana Maharaj,
Yeah.
Guru Kulis, devotees who left and made a comeback.
Yes.
Like such a diverse group of people that we could learn from
Totally.
their own journey. I really appreciate, I think more than anything else, I appreciated the diversity of guests.
Mm.
And
Yeah. I agree with you 100%. I mean, if we're all the same, it's like boring. But if we're able to see the differences and appreciate them and for what they are, and that's beautiful, I think.
I think if we expect like too much of sameness, that's a little bit Mayavad.
Yeah.
A
lot bit
variety.
Mayavad, yeah.
In Vrindavan, there's unlimited variety.
Yeah.
And everybody loving Krishna in their own way, in harmony.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your square of tapestry very much.
And I appreciate yours.
Thank you, bro. Take care. So if you want to get in contact with Shanta Vigraha Prabhu from Trinidad, I'm going to put his contact info probably in the comment, in the description of this video when it comes out. This will probably come out in February of next year.
Yeah.
So anyways, but thank you for coming through and agreeing to do this, even though it's like late at night and that Prabhu's sleeping over there.
Yeah, but I think it's even more because you have to drop me back. And then
I might
you have
put
to
you on
drive
an Uber
back by yourself.
I might put you on an Uber. Let's see. All right, Prabhu. Thank you.
All right,
Take
thank
care.
you.
Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Thanks, everyone.
Krishna